This is the Leadership Podcast, and we study leaders. This is episode 487, featuring Hans Lagerweij, hospitality executive, founder of Flying Dutchman Consultancy, author of The Why Whisperer: How to Motivate and Align Teams That Get Your Strategy Done.
Thank you.
Joining us today, this is Jim Vasilopoulos, founder of Rafty Advisors, and this is the Leadership Podcast.
Hey, everybody. Jan Rutherford here, founder of Self-Reliant Leadership. Thanks for making us part of your day. And as Jim said, 487 episodes plus 12 mastermind episodes, 487 plus 12, I think is 499. That's pretty darn good. Congratulations, Jim.
Yeah, congratulations, Jan. This has been fun, and I expect to go for quite a while more.
I know. Yep. And you can find all our past episodes on theleadershippodcast.com. And also, don't forget, we're on YouTube now. So if you go to our channel, we'd love for you to subscribe there as well. We're told that most people watch and listen while they work out, ride, or whatever, and then they pick up the phone and look at the video when you say something funny or something's interesting. So we'll try to be funny as well on this episode, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
Yeah.
But as far as things go, one of the things that we're really proud of and we're happy to have on many of these episodes is our sponsorship by Darley. They're a wonderful company. They're trusted by warfighters and firefighters since 1908. That's a long time. Darley's a dedicated company that works on equipping our military and first responders with the essential tools they need for mission success. And that's fuel, firefighting pumps, whatever kind of things they need, whether it's drone or tactical equipment, any kind of solutions they need to help them succeed in saving and protecting us. Discover more about this incredible company and the people who serve our nation's heroes at Darley.com. That's DARLEY.com. Darley, you serve others, we serve you.
Thanks, Jim. And our guest today is Hans Lagerweij. He's a growth architect, strategic framework developer, and as Jim said, the founder CEO of the Flying Dutchman Consultancy. And he's also the author of The Why Whisperer: How to Motivate and Align Teams to Get Your Strategy Done. Hans, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. And also, I have to give my compliments to Jim for pronouncing my last name. That was a 10 out of a 10.
Wow.
And Jen, you had 9 out of 10. So it's pretty close.
I'll take it. And again, where you're at in the world, it's 11 o'clock at night. So we appreciate you being on. It's 4 o'clock Eastern here. But what's not in the public bio? What is something that would be hard to find out about you?
Well, it's actually interesting. I start my book with that. So it's not in my bio. It's not on whatever, LinkedIn profile or whatever. But my first job was actually when I was 15 even. And it was on a Friday evening in the weekends in a do-it-yourself store in the Netherlands, basically a Home Depot, where I took care of the screws and tools department. So yeah, it's not something you find on a resume or a bio, but actually, if we talk about purpose and finding your purpose, it was a critical experience for me because I entered that store probably as a 15-year-old that didn't know what to do in the world, what to study in the future, or what to become. I really had no clue, no idea. And over there in that store, I found my purpose in that sense. I started being curious, asking myself questions. Why does product X sell better than product Y? Why is a customer interested in benefits that? What is, if you place things differently on the shelves, what's the impact? And I think perfect first boss there that let me experiment, let me learn, let me make mistakes. And this is how I actually created my interest in commercial curiosity, so to speak.
Oh, yeah. You just gave me an idea for a future newsletter, is to write about the jobs that aren't on the resume or on the LinkedIn profile. All the jobs we did as kids or as really young probably tell you more about who people are than, the glowing, ritzy, all the cool stuff, the Instagrammable stuff.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting subject. Maybe even a subject for a next book. Who knows?
Yeah. So this was your inspiration for the Why Whisperer, but why now? What caused you to say, I've got to get the message out now?
It was not the inspiration for the Why Whisperer. It was more inspiration for, as I call commercial and leadership curiosity and learn about those topics. The Why Whisperer was written really after, my experience of all those years seeing, great strategies simply die on the operation table, so to speak. And yeah, I think most of us got very much inspired by Simon Sinek's book and him explaining, the importance of the why, what it is, why it's so important, how to get it. But what I was seeing was just a massive gap between theory and practice. And also, if you talk about founders or CEOs that, don't have that MBA degree, all those terms, purpose, mission, vision, strategy, or goals, objectives, KPIs, it could sound like a game of corporate, so sort to say, a BS bingo. And I wanted to create a practical guide that really bridges it all. Basically, for every leader who asks themselves the question, okay, great idea, great plan, great purpose, great strategy, but what now?
What role does discipline have to play in why so many strategies fail?
I would not blame it so much on discipline. Maybe it is the discipline of communicating, of sharing, of inspiring and aligning teams. And I've seen so many different approaches, like, okay, we have a new strategy. Let's send a PowerPoint out in the organization, or let's put it on a corporate intranet.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a tough job to really inspire everyone in the organization, no exceptions, not just the top, everyone behind a plan, a strategy, or a purpose.
Yeah. I'm curious in this, process, the why whisper. Okay. We talked about Simon Sinek and, how he kind of got everyone curious about like, the why, which is, really powerful. Everyone's taken off at that. But like, how does whispering change the way leaders uncover meaning and purpose?
Yeah, good question. Because, what I wanted to say is you can't shout your way to purpose. And with whisper, I really mean that it's not just broadcasting, from the top down. Whispering, you need to get close to people.
Mm-hmm.
Whispering means you need to be so close with your team to have actually a conversation, a two-way conversation. And, to listen to ideas and personal motivations from your team. So, yeah, it's really whispering to me is, about getting people to own the why, not just follow it. So it is seriously coming from a beautiful slogan on the wall to something that is, in their hearts and minds.
Yeah. And I like that because so much, and I think it, people could misconstrue it, as they kind of hear this and process it. And if they don't read the book, but what I really like about it is we live in a world where it's never been easier to broadcast a message, like ever. I can broadcast the message. I can record a video and play it to all my, employees all over the world. And they see the same thing. We can broadcast things to the world on the internet from our laptops and, we could broadcast anything, but like that intimacy, that intentional intimacy, I think is just really important. And I like whispering from the sense of you have to be close,
Yes.
in that I think is really, really important. I'm just kind of curious because I think, I like what you're saying. Have you found that people are kind of misconstrue it a little bit when they kind of hear it? And they're just like, do I have to be soft in my statements or is it just, do I have to be more intimate and close in proximity?
No, it is really more intimate and close. And honestly, it also really depends on culture. In some cultures, it is seen as inspiring if you shout out things. And in other cultures, it is more important to, take a more indirect approach. So yeah, for me, it is really about the intimacy, about being close to the team, about being a team, actually.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, and let me see if I can find it, because I was looking at it earlier as I was looking up for quotes about whispering, but there's one that really stuck out to me, and now I'm trying to find it in a hurry and I can't. But it's something about how like the whispers of, let's say bad things, like the whispers that, and a lot of times whispers are in I think even psychological, there's some terms, but even like in popular terms, they're considered gossip. But like, the
Yep.
whispers of negativity outweigh the broadcast of loud proclaiming statements and, those whispers of doubt and things like that. And while we want to talk about positivity and motivating people and I think it speaks volumes to say that like even the smallest voice can have an impact that far outweighs a loud voice trying to kind of motivate people to accomplish things.
Absolutely. Yeah. I cannot agree more.
Lately, I've had a lot of discussions with leaders that say something to the effect, we need a reset. We need a reset on the culture. And it's kind of, an expression, for lack of a better word, of their frustration, their disappointment, expectations, lack of accountability. And, oftentimes they will think, well, I know my why and it aligns with the organization. And I remind them that you want everybody's why to be what you want it to be. They all have their own why. They're finding their own purpose and meaning. How do you think leaders bridge the gap between what they want people to think, feel, know, do, and what they are doing, whether they're meeting or not meeting the expectations of the leader?
Oh, that's a really difficult question. Let me start by saying, if you have your personal why and your or the organization why, and if these purposes are not aligned, I think that there's three options: either change your personal why, or try to, take ownership, take leadership, and try to influence and change the organization why, or leave, because there is a conflict between the two. If there's disconnect, it will always feel like misalignment. It will always feel like, you're not at the place in that organization.
But Hans, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but let me ask you this. You say disconnect, but isn't 99% of the time, isn't everybody's why connected in the fact that chances are everybody's going to say something to the effect, I'm trying to make other people's lives better? I mean, is it a leader's responsibility to help people get there and realize, hey, no matter what you're saying, thinking, whatever words you're using, you're trying to make the world a better place. You're trying to make other people's lives better. That's what we're doing here. We're doing the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is a leader's responsibility to connect those common themes. And, one of these, well, maybe it's a buzzword. I don't agree it's a buzzword, but what you also hear often is authenticity, the importance. But if you can synchronize individual and organizational purpose, or wise, then you create an authentic connection that really drives results. To me, authenticity, difficult word, authenticity, it isn't a buzzword, but it's actually the bridge that connects those
Yeah.
personal purposes and company purposes.
Yeah. And everybody knows if someone's not being authentic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hey, before I throw it back over to Jim, because I know he's got the quote. He always has the quote. But I just want to remind everybody we're enjoying our conversation with Hans today because we have this great sponsor by the name of Darley. It's a family-owned business for over a century, based in America's Midwest. They're the trusted partner to the U.S. military and first responders. for mission critical defense equipment to innovative firefighting solutions. And Darley equips our nation's heroes for success. And you can learn more about this great company and their dedication to excellence at darley.com. That's DARLEY.com. And the quote, Jim?
The quote is, ever notice that the whisper of temptation can be heard farther than the loudest call to duty?
Ooh,
Wow.
wow, that's a good one.
Earl Wilson. Okay. But I just thought that was a really good one. And I almost wanted to use that at the end of the show today, but it's kind of negative. So I was just like, we got to use one that's more
It
positive.
makes you think of Eve, Adam and Eve.
I didn't go there.
That's where I literally, that's the visual that popped into my mind. Somebody going, here, have this apple.
Yeah. What I was thinking was it's that whisper of doubt in your mind is so much more powerful than the loudest call to duty or the loudest motivator. And I just think that is such a powerful thing, at a personal level. But this whole concept, and there was a guest we had years ago from Rumi Spice. Okay. She's founded Rumi Spice, Kim Young. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
And we had her on, and she was an impressive lady. And she echoed a quote that was also about whispering that I thought was super powerful, that I thought was cool. It was like, and it was an ancient Rumi saying, if you listen to the whispers, you won't have to endure the screams. And
Wow.
that was such a powerful quote. And so
You remember that? Wow.
here I am, like doing some research for the show, like on whispering, just because I'm like, I'm curious. Let's look this up. And for as much as you might think that's kind of like, how much is whispering going to affect my leadership style? It's like, there's some really powerful quotes that go with this. I really like this the more I dig into it. Hans, what do you think about all this?
Well, I love the quotes that you came up with. I wish I found them and I would have used them in my book.
Yeah.
Maybe second edition.
There you go.
You can use it for your social media to promote the book.
Exactly.
So, in fact, in a coaching session, I used that whispers and screams today, just this morning, which I thought I use that one a lot, but it's powerful.
Oh.
But I'm curious, okay, about, clarifying the why. So you talk about clarifying the why. How does that help simplify decision-making for leaders?
Yes, I think a clear purpose really helps, to reduce options, choices from a million to just a few right ones. Think about purpose as your North Star. So, if you don't have it, every decision turns to be maybe a lengthy, complex debate with endless options. Well, if you have a clear purpose, you can measure every decision, every direction, every option against it. And to give you an example, of course, I'm very much inspired by the travel industry. So if your company's purpose is to empower people to travel with purpose, for example, every decision you can measure against it. If there's an idea to implement a new technology, you ask yourself, does this technology help our customers to travel with more purpose? If yes, okay, we could really consider it and we go a bit deeper, maybe in cost benefits. If not, eliminate it, remove it. It's no longer an option. So yeah, I think a clear purpose absolutely will save your time, will set your directions. As I said, it's your North Star.
Yeah, I really, what I like about this, and it's just like, I enjoy your thinking because it takes things that I think about, but it connects them in ways I didn't connect them earlier. And so everyone talks about your why, using your why, connecting it to decision making, and like really using it to eliminate options and just get it down to a simpler decision, I think is just so, we don't think of that. We don't go back to the why. We talk about the why, we go to our why, we scream it from the mountaintop, and then we don't use it,
Absolutely.
to use it in the decision making, I think is so clever, because I've talked about this before, but I would say, like, in growing up in Chicago and spending most of my life in Chicago, there's a season in Chicago where there's always, like, it's like during winter when there's a lot of fires because people are trying to heat their home with their stove or with a space heater and with a million different extension cords. And there's always some tragic fires. And, occasionally there's a story of someone who had to throw a baby off out of a window to firefighters down below, or jump out of a window to, in the arms of hopeful someone catching them, to survive. And you think about what a terrible decision, what a gut-wrenching decision someone has to make to throw their child out of a window to hopefully have someone catch them below. But the reality is it's not that tough a decision because you don't have many options. You have two terrible options. And so it's like, okay, I've got this one option, which is awful, and I've got this one option, which is less awful, so I can make it. In any other circumstance, if you had multiple options, you'd never make that decision. And so I just think the idea of using your why to simplify the number of options you've got, I love that.
Yeah, and that's what my book actually is about. It is about actioning it. If you want to understand why it's important and how to create it, read Simon's book. Then I would like to be, your next step. Okay, you have this beautiful poster in the canteen detailing your purpose and maybe also your vision and mission. But how do you make sure that purpose is then in the hearts of the employees once they leave the canteen and go to their workstation?
Mm-hmm.
Let me kind of go back to what I was saying before, the CEOs that feel stuck a little bit and say, I need a cultural reset. And oftentimes it's, teams that aren't performing very well. It might be that the trajectory of the growth of the organization has outpaced the skills of some of the people. But I'm wondering, how can leaders that feel like, oh, I need a reset with my people, how can they use this? Are there any practical steps that you can recommend?
Well, if you talk about, we talked about personal why. So
Yeah.
I would say, and I have done this myself, of course. I think it's so powerful to first ask yourself, when in my life did I feel most energetic, most alive? Second question, what were my professional highlights? When did I book the best results? And if you connect those, you probably will find a common thread that is your personal purpose, your personal why. And the same questions, the same tactics. I mean, you can have with your team. It is having more in-depth, discussions, which can be groups, which can be one-to-ones, probably, both. And one of my favorite questions here is to ask the team, as team members, what makes you most proud in your job? What are you most proud of? And you learn so much from questions like that on what's driving your team, what gets them out of bed in the morning and up to the office, or if it's remote, off to a Zoom call.
To my question, the way you answered it, Hans, what kind of went through my mind a little bit, and tell me if I'm bouncing this back to you in the right way, is what you just described in a way is what I call a stay interview. It's like not an exit interview why people leave. It's like, hey, let me figure out why people joined. Are those reasons still here? Kind of to, what are you proud of? What are you not proud of? What do you like? What don't you? I mean, to figure out, what tweaks do we need to do to make sure we retain the top talent, or what decisions do we need to make to replace them?
Yeah.
Am I saying something similar to what you put back to me, or is a little different?
Yes. And also, and I write about this in my book. So if change is needed, don't talk around it. I talk about a method which I call the reverse elevator speech in my book, which is basically the elevator pitch, but then the other way around. It's you as a leader that gives a pitch to your team, and you have to be able to articulate in 3 minutes, not in 50 PowerPoints, in 3 minutes, where are we going? Why do we go there? Why it's important? What's expected from the team? And why is that exciting for them? Why is it interesting? Why is it, don't they have to be afraid of it? Why should they love it? And, then the last point is feedback. Let them build on it. It's not just a dictate. It's not just a broadcast. Let's build on it. But 3 minutes, as I call it, the reverse elevator pitch.
I think that's pretty cool.
Yep.
I want to kind of get to a topic that I think is really interesting. I think you're uniquely positioned to answer because I think you are a world traveler. You've got a lot of experience. You've seen a lot of different things. I think sometimes I'm pretty good with, kind of judging, North American and European cultures and the nuances that go with it. But I've got a son who's just finishing up some time in Asia, and like we're learning through him about some, norms that are just different than what we're used to. And I think it's fascinating. So, and I even think about it, like if, I had a discussion as we're having a very North American discussion about why and the importance of it and this and that. I know if I was sitting in a cafe in Greece having this conversation with a bunch of people, I'd be like, why? What are you doing? What are you wasting your time for? I don't think it would be received in the same way. And so, when we talk about why, what are the cultural nuances that people should be aware of, especially as we have a global economy, we have workers all over the world, and we all collaborate via Zoom. What are the nuances we need to be aware of as leaders when we're trying to inculcate our people with, the purpose and why?
Yeah, beautiful question, I have to say. So I'm sitting here in Saudi Arabia, just traveling home. So that was again a very interesting culture experience.
Mhm.
And so yes, I myself, I worked and lived in more than 7 countries, managed global, operations, distribution channels in 50 countries and more. And if there's one thing that I strongly believe in, is that in every culture and every country, people want to feel a sense of purpose. I think it's simply a fundamental human need. Now, the difference is the way it is expressed and communicated. That can vary dramatically by culture. An example from, I'm Dutch, and we Dutch, we are unbelievable direct. So as a leader in the Netherlands, you will get feedback from your team. Your team will speak up if they think you're doing something wrong. No problem. They will tell you. Then moving on to I'll give you an example. Japan. In Japan, there's tons of, respect for authority. And in general, it's a very respectful culture. Don't want to, come across badly. And people in Japan will not often challenge leaders. They will not give feedback to leaders. And, even us, you could say, okay, then instead of telling, I'm asking questions, but even asking direct questions will not work that well over there. You have to go really indirectly, like, what would happen if we didn't do this? In a direct country, you could say, okay, this is my ideas on a plan. This is my ideas on a strategy. What do you think about it? In more of these, indirect cultures, you would say, please help me. I need your help. I have here a plan and I know it can be better and I need your help to make it better. Really invite them in, and understand that you need to help. It's not about criticizing you. So, Yeah, it's actually I love these cultural challenges, and in my view, yeah, purpose is absolutely universal language, but you have to speak it in different accents.
Yeah. What I like about that too is it really speaks to maybe some of the other things we've studied on the show, which has been anthropology. And we've had several anthropologists that have been on the show, and they talk about, let's say, and not just anthropologists, but like I'm going to connect this to anthropologists, to people who have studied psychology and, neuroscience and persuasion, like Dr. Cialdini. And then even to people who have talked about, the aspects of, how not just that we persuade people, okay, but that we can kind of manipulate situations, like, certain CIA type people, who are just like, here's how you get people to do things. And that is that we have this common thread, no matter where we are, because we're human, that we are wired to help one another. We are just wired. We wouldn't have succeeded as a species if we weren't wired to help one another and group together. And so I think that commonality where you just say, like, help me, I think honestly, let's say it works in a more structured, maybe less permissive culture like Japan. And you could say in other cultures where it's like, the feedback's coming for free, hold off. I think the reality is asking for help is good anywhere. I just think that's such a good practice to just say, it shows vulnerability as a leader, which I know we've talked about and said, like, hey, that's a great leadership trait used properly. It shows, an understanding and a willingness to kind of collaborate and an openness. And I think it's very authentic. I just think that's just great advice to, ask for help.
Yes, and you can apply that indeed if you talk about culture differences, but also think about extrovert introverts. If you want to, sometimes if you want to get input from introverts, you really need to invite them in, ask them for help, instead of just assuming they will provide you with their ideas.
Yeah. Well, Hans, this has been really fascinating. What sort of challenge would you like to put out, to our listeners, based on what you spend a lot of time curating and writing about?
Well, for me, and I framed that also in the beginning, it's easy to get lost in all these fancy terms like purpose and as a vision, mission, strategy, objectives, etc., etc. But my book, actually, it isn't about theory. It is really about action. It's a toolbox. And what really the challenge here is to go from that poster on the wall in the canteen or in the meeting rooms to go into the heartbeat of the organization. And let's not forget, and that would be maybe then my final quote, is that in the end, the most powerful strategy is the one that your team believes in and that they're willing to fight for.
Oh, that's good. That's excellent.
I love that. Hans, thank you for being a guest on our show.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jen.
Yeah, this has been
that was interesting.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And for our listeners, that's all we have for you this week. We'll include ways for you to connect with Hans in our show notes. So make sure to visit us at theleadershippodcast.com. And remember, the louder the world becomes, the more radical it is to whisper truths, not to be heard by all, but to be remembered by someone. Lawrence Nault. It's a wrap.
Thanks for listening to the Leadership Podcast. To listen to more shows or to access the books and content discussed on this show, be sure to visit theleadershippodcast.com. The material in this podcast is copyright by Rafti Advisors and Self-Reliant Leadership and must have written approval before commercial application.